Okay. Could you please give me your name, title, and organization, please?
Of course, yes. So my name is Neda Zuhdi. I am the director of the Open Gov Hub in Washington, D.C., and I'm happy to be here.
Do I have your permission to do this interview?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please give me a brief overview of Open Gov Hub?
Sure. So Open Gov Hub really is a meeting place, first and foremost. We bring together lots of different organizations who have a common mission to help make governments work better for their people and promote civic engagement around the world. And we were the world's first innovation hub to focus on this theme of open government. Today, we now support about 60 organizations in Washington, D.C., as well as a network of 13 affiliate hubs around the world.
How did you come to be?
Yes, so we have a great origin story. I was not part of the founding team, but we were founded back in 2012. And there was two very interesting movements happening around this time. The first was the movement around people power, basically, really appreciating the important role that everyday people have to play in holding their governments accountable. So this was the era of the Arab Spring and Occupy Wall Street and other movements, which really drew attention to civic engagement in a whole new way. So there was a number of institutions like the World Bank and others trying to make sense of how to engage. And this was when the Open Government Partnership was founded under President Obama's leadership as well. So we grew very much out of the beginning of this open government movement, which continues until today. At the same time, there was a movement around innovation hubs. So if you think about accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces, and tech and social impact hubs, we also grew out of that movement, and we were one of the very first players, one of the very first social impact hubs in the world, as well as the very first to focus on this specific angle of open government.
What's the mission of Open Gov Hub?
Yeah, of course. So our mission is to be this dynamic meeting place that brings people together around three core values, which is how we define open government. That is to promote transparency, accountability, and civic participation. And then the way that we fulfill that mission to have greater impact is to really help people to share resources who are working on these issues and to help them collaborate on a regular basis.
The 3 C's, can you tell me about the 3 C's?
Yeah, and let me add a little more to the origin story, if I may. So as I mentioned, we grew, we were founded in a really unique time back in 2012 when these new currents were developing around government and people on the one hand, as well as innovation. At the same time, our founders really had the vision to try to respond to 2 core problems in the world. The first problem is that resources are limited for nonprofits, NGOs, and social enterprises. That is a common reality, whether you're in the United States or another country. So our vision was to pool those resources together with like-minded NGOs and other organizations to really save time, save money, just work more efficiently on an everyday basis. And then the second core problem in the world, of course, is that governments are not always serving their people. Democracy especially is, always a work in progress. So we really wanted to make an environment of collaboration for people who are working on these issues because they're just far too complex and important to try to solve alone. So that's kind of more background on why Open Gov Hub developed with the mission that we have. And then we've been, growing ever since. We're getting up to our 10-year anniversary this fall, which is very exciting. But we again, provide shared resources, which includes a world-class co-working space in downtown DC and other professional services, for example, with accounting, with HR, with IT, and communications. And then in addition, the second part of what we do, again, is all about this collaborative environment, which means that we convene all kinds of different programs and events almost every single day to help people get to know each other and work together.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the importance of the physical space that you created?
Yes, thank you, because that, we always want to start with the physical space, because when we think about hubs, we think about physical places, which also have now virtual networks and other forms of support. But I think, again, to be this dynamic meeting place means that we organize specific activities to support new relationships and new collaborations, but we also facilitate the serendipitous connections, which you can't plan. So that's one of the brilliant aspects of any innovation hub that brings people together in a physical space, whether, again, it's co-working, it's an accelerator, it's a community center. It's all about bringing people who have something in common together, as well as bringing people with diverse perspectives, but helping to uncover what they share and how they can support each other. So our physical space has actually grown over the years as well. We started, in our bootstrapped phase with some people knocking down some old cubicles by the World Bank and so on. And then we relocated most recently in 2021 to a 20,000 square foot space because we had really outgrown our previous location. It is a totally open floor plan as well. Which is intentional because that is not only a good, transparent way to, operate, but it really makes it more likely for people from different organizations to, again, communicate with each other, uncover shared interests and new ways to work together. Yeah.
Tell me about your programmatic themes.
Sure. So every year we think about what are some really timely topics in the world and how can we convene people in a unique way around them. So we kind of crowdsource ideas from our member network, which again has about 60 organizations and 300 members, 300 people. And this year, the 2022 themes are, first of all, institutional integrity, which is really focused on helping make sure that governments are responding to timely global issues, especially the COVID-19 recovery and the climate crisis. So encouraging people to think and explore what are different ways to hold governments to account. For example, we had a great event with our partners that run a network of African NGOs who are doing tracking of COVID finances. Our government's really delivering on their promises to use COVID relief funds the way that they should. So the second theme is about people power. So I mentioned that part of our origin story, but this year we're trying to look at it in a few different ways, continuing to think about social movements and how to understand and engage positively with social movements who are fighting corruption and promoting democracy, including here in the United States. But also thinking about issues of equity and justice, including racial justice, which has long been not sufficiently addressed, I think, in our field. The final theme for 2022 is smarter data, which is building on the expertise of our network in terms of open data, for example, but also trying to tackle new challenges around rising disinformation and what can we do to use open information about how governments work in order to make them work better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about your 3 C's.
Yes. So the 3 C's is kind of part of OpenGov Hub's strategy as a network and as a community building organization. This informs the types of programs that we offer to the members who are here. The first C is all about community building. So starting off by really intentionally building relationships that didn't already exist. Making introductions to people, and often in a more informal and casual environment. So happy hours and potlucks and language lunches, like these are the types of activities that we really need to start with to make sure that people can also do deeper collaboration. What I found when I came here many years ago, I was very enthusiastic to host working groups and go deep into all these topics. And many people told me, those are great ideas, Neda, but I don't even know this person's name. Can we start there first? So I really appreciated the art and science of activating a network and building relationships. So then the second C is collaboration. There's many different ways that we do this, but we like to make sure that people are exposed to new ideas. So for example, we host book talks a lot. We host panels with really diverse perspectives. We host lightning talks to kind of, again, expose people to new ideas and to give feedback on each other's work. The final C is all about change. So these are innovation and skill building sessions. Each year we're hosting at least 1 or 2 workshops which happen over 1 or 2 months, where people can really go deep to build new skills that they need to be successful in their own mission. And then we also host periodic innovation sprints, design thinking activities, even hackathons and mapathons to bring people together in a short period of time to really try new tools to address social problems.
As I mentioned to you, this is for a virtual reporting tour
Yes.
for a group of journalists who are focusing on anti-corruption issues.
Yep.
How does anti-corruption fit into your space?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So again, anti-corruption has always been a huge aspect of what it means to do accountability work. So how can we actually bring this value of accountability into public life, whether we're talking about, low-level corruption with individual police officers or school teachers or so on, all the way up to kind of grand corruption issues, and especially issues of transnational kleptocracy and corruption. So I would say our network today has a lot of great resources about what are the international rules of the game that we can try to enforce to really, again, limit this common practice of kleptocratic leaders basically using public funds in their country, but hiding that money offshore, right? In multiple complicated, scenarios typically. But we have some great organizations here in the network that are working on that issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me who your members are.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So our members, the most typical member at Open Gov Hub is a small nonprofit, NGO, which is doing policy, research, or advocacy related to one of the topics we've discussed. It might be focused on open data, on anti-corruption, on investigative journalism. So there's a lot of different topics that fall under the umbrella of open government. But we don't actually require organizations to be an NGO in order to join us. We do also have a couple companies, which are social enterprises. We have a couple donor organizations. But really, the key criteria we look for is a fit with those 3 shared values of open government, since that makes the foundation for all of our joint work together and our shared space. And in addition, we ask people who want to join as a member, why are you interested in collaboration? Because we really believe that a successful network is made up of the people behind it. And we ask everyone, what do you need help with from others? But also, what can you offer to help others? So me and my team are constantly catalyzing those connections based on needs and offers within this amazing network of world-changing, social entrepreneurs and NGOs.
How do you measure your impact?
Yes, that's a great question. So as I mentioned in the beginning, there's kind of 2 core aspects of what we do. So that influences the type of impact that we seek. Starting off with the efficiency benefits. So it's really important for us to make our members as successful as they can be. The more our members are being efficient, the more we as Open Gov Hub are being successful. So really practical ways that we track that actually is through cost savings, for example. Because again, most small nonprofits have very limited resources. So how can we help each organization save $15,000 a year? That's kind of a data point that we track through everything from savings on their office rent, the physical space, to shared vendors and other professional services, again, which really help them operate very efficiently. And help them expand their teams. We actually have a lot of shared staff arrangements. That's one of the most common forms of collaboration. People will hire, each other through the network, and we will refer a lot of our fellows who are, younger professionals into this program. They will often get hired by our members, which is a key impact and success metric for us as well. And then the second part, again, is all about programmatic collaboration. So how are people actually implementing their own missions more effectively because of the learning that they've had here, the relationships, the peer support. A couple of quick examples on that side more so have to do with policy, right? So we have been very involved in trying to get the United States to revive its open government partnership process with the current Biden administration. It wasn't a surprise to many people, but this was completely dormant during the Trump era. Again, founded under President Obama back in 2011 and really had a lull for several years. So we convened a number of roundtables and made joint policy recommendations to the White House. And that report, which came out last year, helped put pressure on the White House to name an official who's within the White House Domestic Policy Council to be responsible for bringing this program back to life. So I'm really encouraged by the kind of advocacy that we can do when we find a policy issue that many people can relate to and kind of raise our collective voice to draw attention to it.
How might something like this be advantageous in another country that's dealing with many of the issues that you're dealing with?
Yes, this is a great question because I wanted to discuss the Global Affiliate Hubs network that we have more deeply. So the quick backstory is that ever since OpenGov Hub started 10 years ago in DC, we've always hosted many international visitors because our network, again, works very globally. And so from the beginning, there would be people visiting saying, wow, this is such a unique model. I've never seen something like this before. I wonder if I can take this back home with me and maybe recreate a similar civic innovation hub. So we had great conversations for years, and one of our own members, which is called the Accountability Lab, they were brand new when OpenGov Hub started, and they benefited so much from this ecosystem of support that we create that they decided each new office we open in a different country, we want to help try to recreate an OpenGov Hub in that environment. So Accountability Lab has really helped expand the network. They founded the first OpenGov Hub in another country. This was in Kathmandu, Nepal in 2014. And then gradually we started to formalize a program of support. So again, today we have 13 affiliate civic innovation hubs. Some of them have different branding, some of them have different areas of expertise, but we all share this commitment, again, to the open government values and to play the role of a hub, which again is all about activating those network connections and convening a physical space for people to share and learn from each other. So I really think, I've learned so much through this network, and I hope we can keep growing it. I think everywhere could benefit from an OpenGov Hub because, again, these are universal challenges to make governments work better for their people. But at the same time, we're not trying to build, a satellite network of locations, but we are very open to hearing from people who really are committed to this model, so that we could maybe add them to our network, coach them, and really do peer learning. That's the most important thing.
What feedback do you get from your affiliates?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share a couple of quick stories. One of the most important things that we focus on with the affiliate network is financial and staff sustainability. Because I found very early on, that this work can be very demanding. And at the same time, we can have smart business models to help us give ourselves financial sustainability and not worry so much about what certain donors may want or need at different times. So we help create space basically for all of us as civic, innovators to learn from each other and honestly to feel motivated and avoid burnout, because that's a very real issue in the NGO sector in general and in our network. So one of the success stories, a few months ago was hearing from the leader of our hub in Tunisia, which is called L-Space, talking about, he's an extremely passionate, amazing social entrepreneur and leader in that country, but he's also burned out a couple times in his work. And he shared with me how a few months ago, through the conversations we were having in our network, it really helped him take a step back when he was completely overwhelmed in his work and recharge and share leadership, train his team, build up the capacity of their work so that it wasn't just hinged on him as an individual leader and all of the burden of responsibility that brings to it. So we've heard really great feedback again about like the solidarity and morale that comes with knowing you're not alone and knowing that this is a model that many people have grown successfully in different countries. So some of our younger hubs, which are just starting, love to hear the journeys of the older hubs in the network, right? What did you do when you hired your first staff person? What did you do when you got your first grant? And that really keeps us all motivated to keep doing this work, because it's, I think, a perennial problem that we need to be addressing, and hubs are a great way to be innovative in this work.
What is your role at Open GovHub?
Yes. Maybe a better question is what isn't my role at Open GovHub? So just a quick journey. So I joined Open GovHub in 2015. I was in effect a one-woman organization. So I was not one of the founders, but I was only one person when I joined. And so I've had the chance to really touch every aspect of what we do and grow every aspect of what we do. That has meant, doubling our membership and our revenue, expanding our team, our global network. And so I've, again, been involved with everything. But today, my primary responsibilities have to do with kind of strategic leadership of, where we're headed, to lead on our membership development, including recruiting new organizations to this network who are not already well represented. And that includes domestic U.S. open government and good government leaders. And then also leading on partnerships. So finding new ways every year to connect with partners who can bring resources and knowledge to our members. That has included, corporate sponsors, universities, and many other types. But that's kind of how I spend my time these days.
As an NGO, how is what you do different from what government organizations do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a key role to play for pushing reform inside and outside of government. So we have, again, a whole network of NGOs who have different approaches, different expertise, but some of them, many of them, I would say, are very collaborative with government. They want to help be the eyes and ears of government because, we know governments also have limited resources, and there could be people who really want to implement reforms, but they're stretched. So I think NGOs can really provide that extra capacity and real knowledge about what's actually happening, what do people actually struggle with, and how can public policies respond to that citizen feedback. Some other NGOs have a more confrontational approach, and I think honestly all those strategies need to exist, but especially if we're talking about corruption, some people, name and shame the bad, corrupt leaders, which is important. Other people want to name and fame the good, honest leaders to show the alternative of what is possible. Accountability Lab, again, is a great example, which runs this integrity icon program in many countries, which is such a good way to inspire people to remember that there are honest public servants in their country, and what can we do to support and celebrate and uplift them. So I think all those strategies are important, but at the end of the day, it has to be a partnership between reformers inside and outside of government to live up to the visions that we all have for success.
What drew you to this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had an interesting journey, but for the last several years, I've really focused on civic innovation. And for me, that means to bring together democracy and government work with social entrepreneurship and innovation. The reason that I love being in this place and in this unique environment has a lot to do with my personal background and where I started my career. I'm an Egyptian American. I was born and raised in the US, but I have had the chance to work with activists in places like Egypt and other parts of the Middle East before, during, and after the Arab Spring. So I had really formative experiences earlier in my career, really trying to understand what could I do as an insider and an outsider to help people who were literally on the front lines of bringing down dictators and trying to create a better future for their countries. And of course, that has not been a linear journey. There have been ups and downs, but especially as the challenges to democracy become more global and local, for me as an American, I have a big passion for connecting democracy defenders to, again, realize that they're not alone in their work. There's so much we can learn from sharing strategies and tactics because the challenge, again, truly is global. There's lots of great data from Freedom House, Civicus, The Economist that point to global democracy backsliding. But I think the best way to respond to that, again, is to really keep growing the movement of peer learning and peer support so that we can tackle these challenges effectively.
So this is a group of 50 international journalists.
Yep.
What would you say to them about how a space like this might help them, particularly in the area of anti-corruption?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, journalists are an integral part of the open government movement. And I think the kinds of partnerships that we want to create as civic innovation hubs can really help journalists uncover stories. They can help them reach new audiences. I often think about all of the benefits that we've had from the journalists who have come through our network over the years. Again, both to expose stories that are not getting enough coverage, and also to really share those stories back to the policy experts so that they can understand the patterns that exist in anti-corruption and kleptocracy and so on. There's some real recurring patterns, but I think journalists have such a unique power and privilege to share those stories with the masses, while also learning from and contributing to the policy approaches. What are the laws? What are the strategies that we're doing in response to these terrible instances of corruption? Yeah.
That's all my questions. Is there anything you would like to add or that you feel we missed?
Let me just check really quick.
Sure.
Maybe I'll share one other quick story if it's helpful.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Cool.
You okay?
Yeah,
All right,
good.
so you have a story you'd like to share.
Yes, thank you so much. So as I mentioned, we have been really active to connect democracy defenders internationally and domestically here in the United States. That has been through a program which is called Defending Democracy that OpenGov Hub started in 2017, and we continue to run until today. And again, I think that's really where some of our biggest excitement is in terms of the future, because the challenges to democracy only keep growing, but that means that the cross-country partnerships need to keep growing in response to this real global and domestic challenge. One quick example from some of that work that we've done is a few years ago, we were able to basically facilitate a knowledge exchange between activists in Nigeria around this End SARS campaign, which has to do with police brutality, with lessons and activists in the Black Lives Matter movement, and with activists coming out of Tunisia's Arab Spring movement from 10 years ago. So it was a really interesting time to be reflecting on, again, the power of social movements, the ongoing issues in society about government accountability and racial justice and equity. And I think those are the types of conversations, again, that really keep me motivated and inspired in doing this work. Because again, the challenges that we face have far more similarity than differences, especially on corruption and accountability. So the more that we can do to share these stories, the more effective we will be at overcoming these challenges.
Terrific.
That's it.
Thank you so much. Now,
Cool.
can we get some shots of you
Sure.
sitting at your desk?